Hello, everybody. Today, Vaughn, Richard, Justin, and myself will be talking about the co-founder and CEO of the Every Company, previously known as Clara Foods, Arturo Elizondo. He's got a really cool name. Next slide. So who is Arturo Elizondo? So he's the son of Mexican immigrant parents to the U.S. and grew up in Laredo, Texas, but would spend much of his time growing up on both sides of the border. He would go on to graduate from Harvard and then work under Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. He would work for the U.S. Department of Agriculture and for global investment bank Credit Suisse before going on to co-found his own company. They'll be going into detail about later in the presentation. He has received numerous awards and recognition for his work with his company, including the Forbes 30 Under 30, the 2019 Person of the Year by the National Hispanic Institute, and has been named one of 10 Latinos who inspired the United States by BBC World News. Next slide, yeah. So why did we choose Elizondo? So as part of the younger generation, there's a very real concern that the planet won't be inhabitable for our children if we don't start taking steps to avoid it now. And it's an issue that a new generation of leaders will have to address. Arturo Elizondo and his company are preemptively taking that step. And it's encouraging to see a company whose objective is sustainable food production to get as much funding as to get as big as it has. He's quoted as saying, animals are an incredibly inefficient source of protein. And as much as I personally love meat, and I'm sure you guys do too, it's becoming more and more apparent as the research is coming out that the current meat industry is a leading cause of pollution globally. So at some point, there has to be a shift in how we produce meat. And maybe Arturo and his company are the answer. Another reason why we chose Arturo is he's a bit of an underdog. He's a son of immigrant parents. He spent a lot of time in a very politicized, for lack of a better term, area, growing up on both sides of the border and in southern Texas. I don't believe he grew up poor by any means, but to come out of such circumstances and make it to Harvard and then to graduate there and move on to work for the government and then co-found such a big company, I think it's something everyone can aspire towards. And now I'm going to pass it off to the next slide.
All right, so the background of Clara Foods. So as discussed before, Arturo Elizondo is the co-founder and CEO of Clara Foods. It was founded in 2015 and is headquartered in San Francisco, California. As of 2021, Clara Foods was rebranded to the Every Company, again, as discussed before. The reason why behind this is right on their website, it says, we believe in a world where every protein is animal-free and every factory farm is shut down. This is what we work towards every day. So what does Clara Foods, or the Every Company, develop/produce? So the Every Company develops proteins and other products that are traditionally sourced from animals. For instance, one of the products that they produce is an animal-free egg white, which can be used instead of traditional eggs for baking and such. They're actually the first to develop the first animal-free egg white. They achieved this by using yeast to convert sugars into proteins that are similar to those found in animals and animal products. Some of the products that they've worked on are the Every Clear Egg, the Every Clear White, and the Every Pepsin, which the Every Pepsin is a one-to-one nature identical pepsin replacement. And they were the first ones to do that as well. All right, so why an entrepreneur? Again, so as discussed before, food was a big part of his culture. Arturo has seen the environmental damages from animal agriculture. Back in 2013, he actually studied in food security in Geneva, learning more about the overall global impact of the animal agriculture system. With him seeing it firsthand and having more knowledge about this problem, he wanted to tackle this problem firsthand. So in 2014, he actually flew down to San Francisco, where at a conference he met Dave and Shell, where soon after the pair began to work on their idea to use microbial fermentation that could create eggs without the need for chickens. So for one of the traits that we picked for Mr. Elizondo, what I picked was a long-term thinker. So he's learned the global impact of animal agriculture on our food system. So he's witnessed how food gets to our plate and the environmental damages that come along with it. So what he wants to do, he wants to accelerate the tradition. He wants to accelerate the transition, to a more green, a more ethical, and more sustainable protein. So without the use of any animals. So essentially, on a agricultural side, he wants to reduce the amount of methane that's being released because of cows and all that, and use less water, less land, less energy, and that can be translated to a business side of things. So less money being spent on water, on land, and overall energy, where you can just make sustainable substitutes in a lab. Why is a long-term thinker important in leadership? It develops insights into the future and the position of the company to positively interact with their environment. So they shape their overall company to basically help. They shape their overall company to help interact with the environment and make it more steady towards the future. And not to mention, it inspires others to work enthusiastically into the future while still remaining grounded in the present. And now I'm going to hand it off to the next person.
Alrighty, thanks, Richard. So job relevant knowledge is another trait that we chose. Growing up Latino and Texan, Arturio was familiar with animal proteins. Sounding like a good combination of steaks and enchiladas there. He's the CEO of Clara Foods and has done presentations on, like Richard said, reimagining the egg white. He talked about how the egg white spreads out into expanding product categories beyond baked goods, gluten-free alternatives, protein supplements, and vegetarian meats. A staple at a lot of fast food chains, actually, using like similar technology to create cheese. Prior to becoming CEO of Clara Foods, he worked under the Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She's the first Latino associate of the Justice of U.S. Supreme Court. Working in the public and private sectors, he had the opportunity to use those tools to impact food justice. He also worked in the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Next slide. So having job-relevant knowledge means that you can do well-informed decisions, or they're considerate decisions from different perspectives. Decisions usually come with uncertainty. Knowledge is, easily accessible nowadays. That's why there's a bunch of tools and relevant jobs that sort of through information like analytics, big data, and business intelligence. Going to the next slide, we talk about self-confidence. So he's done TEDx presentations. You can't be on those things if you're not knowledgeable and confident on how you say things. These types of talks let people share TED-like experiences. He's very compassionate in what he does, and he's literally converting factory farms and slaughterhouses of today into the breweries of tomorrow. And the next slide, I talk about why self-confidence is kind of important. So it's pretty self-explanatory on why self-confidence in leadership is important. So some key takeaways on self-confidence are being positive of the future. So no such thing as self-doubt. What Arturio has done indicates how much self-confidence he has, and to do that hasn't been done before. That takes guts. You're willing to take risks. It's like developed through something that's developed through time and can always be improved on. And I'm going to pass it over to Vaughn to talk about the website.
This is the main website for their company, formerly Clara Company, now the Every Company. The main website emphasizes on the science and work that went into creating methods of cheap, sustainable production of protein without needing to grow animals, as well as the benefits of such kinds of proteins to provide for both in the environment and the economy, such as not needing to have use so much space for like grazing cows or slaughter them and all that, and all the things and all the money you can cut off with not having to have to care for these cows and such. Overall, this website helps demonstrate Arturo's knowledge of food security, which you'll earn previously for I forgot what it's college or university. Yeah, university education, as well as science, industry, and economics. Next one slide. And in conclusion, Arturo Elizondo is a charismatic leader willing to work towards a future that no longer requires the need to grow, feed, and slaughter animals for food. Using a mix of experiences gained from previous work combined with knowledge learned from previous educations and his genuine enthusiasm for a better future has helped lead R&D teams through 7 years worth of hard work to release products such as animal-free egg white replacements and pepsin, which is a kind of pepsin that's also animal-free, which is used to break down protein. Interestingly enough, and that's the end. Next slide. This is our sources.